Welcome to Hello Chaos, the weekly podcast exploring the messy and chaotic minds and lives of founders, innovators, and entrepreneurs. We are a weekly podcast. We publish every single Sunday, so founders come and check us out to listen to the ahas and the oh shits and the real unvarnished stories of founders. Today, our guest is Kristin Quattlebaum, or Kristin Q. She is the founder of KQ Unplugged. Kristin has been a disruptor in leadership and industry norms, and she helps others to discover and stand unapologetically for who the fuck they are. Welcome to Hello Chaos, Kristin. I've been looking forward to this for a while now, and I cannot wait to hear how you got to where you are. So just start us out. Tell us about your journey.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for having me, for the invitation to be here. Goodness. So I always start with I was in corporate for 15 years. So when I got out of college, I really just went on my career path. I didn't want anything else in life but to climb to the top of the ladder and then move forward with my life. And what I found along the way was that I couldn't quite find where I belonged. And so I was constantly, I was hustling to achieve things and get promoted and all the things. And I was recognized a lot. And that was great, but I wasn't fulfilled along the way. So while I had all the accolades for it, I just wasn't feeling happy. And so I thought that something was wrong with me. I thought that, I was the one person in the world that couldn't find their purpose path. When everyone around me seemed to know, I want to be an accountant, I want to be a physical therapist, like whatever their path was, they seemed to understand that. And where I was on this journey of exploration, I kept hitting these walls of, well, I thought that was it, but I guess that's not it. And I'm not happy here and I need to move on and do something else. And so through that journey, I actually in my around 30, so I think that's like Saturn return time, like around 30. I got into an accident and it triggered anxiety in my body. And so I'd not experienced any anxiety prior to that. And I ended up going into therapy at that time. Therapy started unraveling, really giving me permission to express myself, to feel my emotions, and to really stand for what I wanted. And then therapy, just like with everything else, I ran into this wall of, okay, I'm not feeling like I'm getting anything out of this now. So I need to move on. So I hired a coach. I started meditating. Meditation opened my intuitive gifts. And so now here I am. For a while now, I was calling myself a purpose guide and healer. And now recently I've unraveled this new title called True Seer and Shadow Alchemist. So my work is really about helping people to dismantle and detach from all the systems and beliefs and all the things that they're attached into that don't represent who they truly are. And then, as you said, have the courage to be who the fuck they are in the world. That's what I love doing. And through that, it is a lot of holding space for truth. Through the intuitive world, and then also that shadow alchemy. So really just alchemizing those fears along the way that we all face. So yeah, that's a bit about where I'm at now.
Very good. So when you talk about the shadow alchemy and the journey is fascinating of really self-discovery. And we talk a lot of that with founders of, as you kind of move from being an employee or employed into a space where you are not just taking a risk on yourself, but you're also putting other people's happiness and joy and their purpose in your path and kind of take responsibility for that. And a lot of founders go through this self-discovery process, and just for me, when I hear shadow, the shadow alchemy, and if I'm not on the right path, just correct me. But when I hear that, it's like when you learn all about your strengths and who you really are. Don't try to discover or not, don't try to like fix your weaknesses. Just be aware of them and know how. And I think I've done every test under the sun of, Myers-Briggs to PI to Strength Finder to, I'm like 5 or 6 of them. And they all are repetitive to me. But one of them stood out and said, Jumper, these are your strengths, but you really need to recognize your weaknesses are your shadows. And they, you need to at least acknowledge them, know that how those can generate consequences based on, the actions that you have. And so you just got to find that balance. Is that the shadow alchemy is discovering those weaknesses about you and just recognizing that, or is it completely different?
I would say that so to me, the shadow alchemy is more of what are the fears? How are we actually getting in our own way and stopping ourselves from moving forward? Where is that sabotage coming in? And it's really like looking deeply at where does that come from and then alchemizing that. So transforming it energetically so that we can move forward in a space of truth as opposed to conditioning.
Okay. So I look at that as I am a term that I've learned this year is a learned extrovert. I'm a natural introvert, but I know I need to perform and to show energy, but also just to build those relationships because it's not natural for me. It's and I don't know if it's rooted in fear. It's just more of insecurities, I guess. So is that kind of understanding that kind of, and you've got to transform yourself. And I'm more like I'm doing things that are making me more comfortable in those settings, but it's not natural. I just have to work a little bit harder. I have to learn those practices. And then I find that I'm finding joy in some of them, but it's taken me 30 years and being in the workforce I've been hiding.
That's really interesting, right? It brings up the question of, is introversion really conditioned or is it your natural way of being? And if it is your natural way of being, then I would want to encourage you to find ways to honor that and not be forcing, like, how can I be extroverted? Because I don't think that you have to be extroverted in this world, right? It's just like, not everybody is meant to be an advocate out in the world, right? So, who are you and what does your energy represent and how do you want to express that in the world?
Yeah.
So it kind of teeters a line, right? Of, is this actually who I am? And to your point about unraveling the insecurities, I think, yes, like, go deep with those and unravel them. But at the end of the day, if you unravel those and still feel like I'm drained by being around a lot of people, then you're honoring your true nature.
Right. Interesting. So what has been the most rewarding part of this journey for you?
Honestly, I would say my tenacity, being able to recognize my own tenacity and that I always have my back, that I can do anything. And the path is up to me, really. I can pivot if I need to. I can shift direction. I don't have to explain myself to anyone. And yeah, it's really been a testament of me not giving up on myself.
What do you think has been the most challenging aspect of entering into this space of foundership?
It's almost like buying a house. When I bought my first house, nobody really tells you about what does it mean to own a house and all the things that come up, right? It's the same thing with entrepreneurship. Nobody really gets into all the things that are going to come up. And if you're willing to face your own shadows, if you're willing to face like what's in your way and how you're getting in your way and how you're really limiting yourself, it can be a real journey of transformation
Yeah.
if you allow it to be. There's also, I believe, another path that people can take, and they can just fit in, like you were saying,
Right.
like just do the things to fit in, and the strategies they think they need to do, and act the way they think they need to act, and hustle their way to a business that ultimately is not really aligned with their energy.
Right.
And then people wonder why they're not motivated.
Right. Or they're not, I will call it vibing out. Like people aren't just coming to you. I mean, because
Yeah.
I think energy, when you kind of cross section your purpose, your passion, and then the impact that you can have on an industry, in somebody's business or what, I mean, I think that's where magic happens. And I think people feel that, and are attracted to that. So I think there's a lot to say about that energy piece,
I agree.
and to find it. And that's where we've seen, we've talked to so many founders. I feel like when people get into this, that's one of the most beautiful parts about being a founder, I think, is we all go through some transformation. We all kind of go deeper. We learn things about ourselves that we've never thought that we'd learn about, our limits, or that we are limitless. We have more courage than we thought we had. We have more tenacity than we thought we had. And I think that's just a testament of a personality trait that makes founders founders.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've just heard so many stories of the man. I learned so much, and I've transformed because of what I've learned.
Yeah, I agree. It's really the measure that I think keeps people going. Like the reason I don't know if that statistic that people fail in the first 5 years is still a thing.
It is.
But, and I just hit I'm like 5.5 years old now.
Yeah. Congratulations. That's a
Thank
milestone.
you.
Yeah.
It is.
I was like, I celebrated 10 years, in 2013. So, excuse me, 2023. So it was, we had a little celebration. It was good.
Yeah, it is. It's a big deal. But I think that's the thing that keeps people going. Like you always have a choice when it gets hard to say,
right.
oh, maybe this isn't for me. If you've ever read the book, The Slight Edge, that's what it's about. It talks about how, people often oscillate between this. I'm in this space of like, oh shit, right? That oh shit moment, like you would say.
Like, what have I done?
So they do enough to like, where can I get to survive? Like where I feel like I can survive here now.
Yeah.
And then they go back down into that, oh shit, I need to do something. And then they're back into that survival. And he basically says that if you just kept doing that thing that got you to survival, you would basically end up in thriving. And only like, I don't know if it's 1, 3, 5% of people in the world actually do that. But most people just journey through that oscillation. And that's what I think that tenacity is. It's that not giving up. And yeah.
Man, do you think there's myths out there about what it means to be a founder? Were there things that you had thought or had heard, and then you entered into the world and were like, that is not what I thought it was going to be?
I think that I thought it was going to be easier than it was.
Yeah.
And I'm a quick learner. I've always excelled in the work that I've done, and so to hit the ground running and have to really build everything from scratch.
Yeah.
It is a lot more than you think it's going to be. It's a lot more than I have this great idea and let's put it out into the world. And then the other thing I would say, just in general, is just the industry standards really unraveling from those, right? So for me, as a coach, what are other coaches doing? And do I need to really tap into that to be successful? Because you see all these success stories, but a lot of times it's presented in ways that I'm not interested in presenting myself.
Yeah.
To your point about putting yourself out there, like I've experimented and tried a lot of those things, but I've always come back to what's in alignment for me. So I would say the biggest things are that it's not quite as easy as you think it would be. And then the second thing is that you have to comply to industry standards or practices to be successful.
To kind of at least look like to get your foot in the door, and then you can disrupt from there. Is that, what are some of the things like for your industry that you see that you're like, this shouldn't be a norm, but it is. Is there anything like that you see? You're like, why is this normal?
One of them is telling people how much you make. That's one thing, right? So a lot of coaches will put, I just had a $200,000 day or week or month, right? Or I just, I took my launch from a 10,000 launch to a $1 million launch. And, I don't know. It's an interesting question. It's something that I feel is more of a way of proving, like proving themselves and saying, this is what I do. And those sort of results aren't normal.
Right. It's like what we see in the entrepreneur world of like the unicorns of this, this idea, was sold for 300 million, and people are like, I'm going to do that and I'm going to make, big money. And it's like, well, one, that could take 10, 20 years to get that through, that it's not normal. It's not normal. They don't act like the other 99% of us out there.
Yeah. And I think it creates a lot of comparison for people.
Yeah.
And thinking they're not successful, right? Because they're not having results like that. But my journey was a bit different in that, coming from corporate, I was making the money. Right. I was making all the money. And so when I stepped back and decided to build my business, well, the universe actually pushed me out of corporate. I had 2 positions eliminated within a year of each other. And so I took it as a sign to get out. But at that point, I wasn't building just for the money, because I already had that and I wasn't happy. So I was building for my own fulfillment and happiness. So I built slower. And I think that's the other thing is pace, right? Is going at your own pace and trusting that everything is happening for you in perfect timing, that you don't have to build $1 million company in a year like someone else maybe did, because are they in alignment? Are they just hustling their way through and following all these strategies that don't feel good to them? Maybe they're burning out. Maybe they'll be sick. I've witnessed so many people that I've followed in the industry that will disappear for a year because now they're off like doing their healing journey because they hustled their way and to burnout or major sickness. And so I'm not building that way.
Yeah. No, that's a good lesson too, of kind of know what kind of business you want for yourself. Because there's some people that get in the business, like if you want to exit, like that's a different path versus it's more of a lifestyle. And you've got to kind of know that when you go into it, of this is something I want to do because I want to balance with family, or I want some freedom, some control over my life. So I think everybody has to have that reality check when they decide to start something, whatever that is. So what was your biggest like aha moment, your big breakthrough of this is the right place for me?
Gosh, did I have like a big moment? I feel like everything that I do when I do events, when I have sessions with people, I'm always checking in for that alignment. I'm always checking in. So I don't know if it's like this big moment that I had. There's nothing coming through right now as far as that, yes, this is the right path. So it's 2 things for me. The first thing is after I host an event or have a session with somebody, just the feeling that I feel like I know this is my purpose. I know I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. That's one thing. The other thing is angel numbers.
Talk
So
about
like
that. Yeah.
1111, 222, 333. Just seeing them along my journey to me has been a sign that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. So I don't spend a lot of time interpreting them. And in the moments when I've been struggling or having a hard time and I see an angel number and I know I'm exactly where I'm meant to be, right? I just sold my car and got a more expensive car. And on my way to clean my car from selling it to family, on my way to clean my car for my aunt, it was 11:11, you know? And then when I pulled my car up for her, I had 111 miles to E. And so little things like that, I take as like, wow,
the universe
this is like,
saying,
yeah, I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. And those are the two things that really just continue to affirm for me. I'm exactly where I'm meant to be.
Have you had any of those like big oh shit moments that you're like, oh no, I don't know how to do this, or how do I, like you said, if you go kind of these oscillating moments of ups and downs, were there any that were just like, oh my goodness, what have I done? Or what has the universe, or what are they trying to tell me?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a few of those moments, a lot of it to deal with money, right? So, draining my savings out, and I kind of got to a place where I thought, I never completely drained my savings, but I did rely on it quite a bit. I got to a point where I was applying for jobs. And then I pulled back and I said, no, like I'm just doing this out of fear. And I need to stay exactly where I am, because I don't believe that I can actually fail if I'm here on earth doing what I'm meant to do. Like I'm here fulfilling my purpose. So how can I actually fail? And I just need to have like unwavering faith in that process. So that was a real test for me a couple times. Like I did actually start looking for jobs a couple times, and then I pulled back, and I never went through with interviewing or getting another job. So it was a lot around money. There was something else that came up that when you asked that, what was that? I lost it.
That's all right. I'm sure it'll come back up. If you had to hit rewind, would you change anything? Would you do anything different?
No. No, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I really believe that everything is happening for us. You know, even being in corporate for 15 years, there's so much of what I learned there. And it's really beautiful to see the work that I've done there also translate into what I'm doing now, but in a different way. I remember the thing that I was going to say, and it was about, as I've traveling, I mentioned to you before we started recording, I've been traveling the last 4 years. And I have made commitments in some spaces and then had like the rug ripped out from under me, right? So I've decided like, I'm going to stay in Louisiana for 6 months now, and with this agreement that I'm going to work with this yoga studio, and then have that just, you know, guess what? We're not going to work together anymore.
Oh, yeah.
I've had moments like that happen where I'm like, why am I here then? What am I doing here? What do I need to learn? And what ended up coming through there actually was one of my gifts opened up, and I connected to the land of Louisiana very powerfully. And also in that time too, I connected with Molokai in Hawaii. And I don't know that would have happened if I didn't just lean in and trust that that's where I was meant to be.
That's right. Yeah.
But those are moments that you're like, okay, like what I thought was going to be bringing money in while I was here is no longer happening. So now what
happens?
I need to
what do we
pivot.
have to do? Yeah. So if you could change 2 things about your business today, like, you know, no limits, what 2 things would you change?
I would be more international.
Oh.
So I've served 21 countries now. which is amazing.
That
But
is amazing.
I
Yeah.
would expand that even more. So I would be more international. And I would also say, like, along that note, I would have more travel experience internationally under my belt, because part of what I feel I'm meant here to do is actually to immerse with other cultures and pick up like their traditions and like what are their healing modalities. And as I said, I connected to the land in Louisiana, right? So
Yeah.
what am I going to pick up while I go to other countries? You know, my gifts have opened as I've traveled, and it's been really amazing, right? So I think what that sounds like is that I would sort of fast forward my path a little bit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what I'm meant to do, but I mean, if you said no limits, like
No limits. That's
that's
right.
where I would be right now.
We're manifesting right now, right?
Yes.
Um. And then when you you say you find open up the gifts and you connect, are there rituals that you have learned from these different cultures that you've really brought into like your own practice of like daily, whether it's stress relievers or mindset shifts, anything like that? You're like, hey, this is things that I've learned, but I'm going to take these on personally now.
hmm One of the things that I learned on my journey was from an 80-year-old mystic in Oklahoma City. And this was amidst the pandemic, and I went to her house and she did an initiation with me. So she opened my high heart chakra and my knee chakras and my hand chakras. And she gave me access to all her teachings.
Wow.
And she said, you're a teacher. Go out and teach the world this work. You can have access to everything that I've channeled since I was 40. The last 40 years. Like, here's all my teaching. And one of the things that she taught me was this grounding and protection exercise. And I actually teach it everywhere I go. I do it every day as well. It's a practice that a lot of people who are very sensitive to energy will say to me, I actually can't read your energy. And I think it's just a testament of how like protected I am. And she told me that. She said very few people in the world will be able to penetrate your aura.
Wow.
And so, it's funny with your I was thinking about this, your podcast name, and just everything going on in the world. And I feel like I've been telling clients will tell me how like emotional they're feeling and stuff like that. And I found myself saying like, there's a lot of intense energy right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that for a time was kind of, like roller coastering. And now I feel like we're just climbing this hill. Like it just keeps getting more intense and more intense.
Right.
And I feel like this is the time we're in. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we don't know if it's going to stop. We don't know if we're at the pinnacle and it's going to go back or if we're just going to keep climbing and this is just what we signed up for. So I think to your point about rituals, like it's more important now than ever.
Yeah. To find your center and to find your focus. Like you can only, there is a lot of chaos out there. We always say like, Hello Chaos was, as founders and entrepreneurs, we welcome chaos. We try to bring as much calm to the chaos as we can, but we know that we operate a lot of times in complete chaos. But I think it's part of that self-discipline of how do we, kind of ignore some of that chaos and really bring focus and discipline ourselves to go, okay, I can only control our response. I control the how the company responds or what do we need to do. I can't control anything else out there. But we can march forward and in our own way. Yeah.
100%.
So if you had to sum up your journey in one word, what would it be?
Expansive.
Ah,
a lot of death and rebirth.
Yeah. Kristin, who do you work with most? Or you mentioned yoga studios, you mentioned, you do coaching individuals, but, who are your ideal folks that you like to work with, you really kind of help them transform?
I was asked this question, as entrepreneurs, we're asked that question a lot. And probably about 6 months ago, I was asked that question. And right away, what came through was Closet Visionaries. And it really resonated with me, right? The people who know that they're meant for more, but they're holding themselves back in some way. Whether they're in, a lot of times it's people who are in corporate and they know like this is not it for them, but they don't know what the path is.
That's right. I know a lot of them. I mean, because, we have a marketing company called Bright. That's what I founded in 2013. But we work with, business leaders and CEOs and, and we hear that. I think I hear that the most of, man, I wish I could do it, or I have this idea, but they're either, there's fear behind that, or it's like, man, just take the leap. Like, you've got great vision. But we hear that a lot. I think there's a lot of people out there that could channel.
Yeah. I was that person in corporate. I mean, I knew there was something else, and I just luckily continue to just follow that.
Do you think it's because people haven't found their purpose yet? I mean, or they're passionate about something, but they haven't figured out how that purpose is impactful and how to align those.
Honestly, I think it's, in some cases, people have found that, but they're so tapped into the noise and chaos around them that they can't really hear it clearly. And so the clarity isn't quite there.
Yeah. Interesting.
And they're looking for that clear path. And so that's, I think, what a lot of our work is detaching from all that noise and really coming back to our own energy. Because when we do that, that's when we know exactly what's meant for us, and there's no question.
All right, Chris. So if we met a year from now, what would we be celebrating?
I mean, what comes through intuitively is that I'm traveling.
Yeah.
I'm already traveling, but internationally.
Where are we celebrating? That's a better question, right? Like, not what are we celebrating, but where?
Yeah, and as soon as you asked that, I got Bali.
I'll come to Bali. We'll celebrate. Manifest, man.
Right? There's so many places I want to go, but that's the one that came through.
Very good. And you've never been?
Mm-mm.
Is there a place that you have gone that you're like, okay, I would go back in a heartbeat? Or are you
Nova
still
Scotia.
kind of Nova Scotia?
100%.
A friend of mine that's in the similar space that you're in, she loves to travel. And whenever she has only been to maybe a dozen countries. She wants to hit so many more. But I've asked her, I'm like, where would you go back? And she was like, I'm not sure I've found that place yet. She goes, I've loved to travel, but would I move there and be there all the time? She was like, I don't know if I found my place yet. So she's still on the hunt.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to have a few properties around the world that I'll continue to travel. But I'll land and have a few places that are my own and I can still travel, but that I have a few. I don't see myself having just one space. Nova Scotia is going to be one of those places.
One of those spaces. Maybe Bali.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this question would even apply to you, but I'm curious has anything surprised you in your journey about yourself or just the nature of the business? Have you been completely caught off guard?
It's an interesting question. There's a lot of things in my journey that I've discovered that I didn't expect in a million years. Like my intuitive journey has been so incredible, and there's been so much that has come through for me from past lives that I never in a million years thought that I would be that person that was tapping into.
Okay.
You know, I'm meditating and I'm dropping into a past life in Egypt and seeing myself be sacrificed. Like these are, and then being able to trace that back to this lifetime and understand exactly what I meant to heal here.
Yeah. So those kind of things have surprised you, just the learning.
Yeah, like I would say what is revealed itself to me about my past is it's so funny that you bring this up, because last week I was doing a session with a client and we were tuning in together on how do you reconcile what you see intuitively with the 3D here. And one of the things that came through was I saw this vision of like an octopus sort of collecting pieces and bringing it back. And so what it felt like we're doing all along the way is like collecting parts of us from past lives and even this life, bringing it back to make ourselves whole again. It's more of that remembering, right? And so it is really interesting to, like, I'm remembering things that I never would have dreamt of in a million years before or thought that I could connect to. But there's so much resonance in it and truth. And so I feel like on this journey, I'm more me every day. You're just amazing.
Finding all the pieces.
Yeah.
When you talked about intuition, this might be a silly question, so I apologize up front. When you talk about intuition, did you find that you had that intuition all along, and it was like those many ahas of like, I knew my gut was right, or you're discovering more of your tuition and how to read into it? I'm just curious.
So I always tell people that I wasn't consciously intuitive growing up. Looking back now, though, for sure, I had moments. Like religion was a big one for me. Like as a child, I rejected the church. And now I understand why, but then I didn't.
Okay.
It's not because I don't believe. It's because I believe that that's an interpretation of the same thing, right? So my belief is that religion is an interpretation of the same thing, right? And so it just, to me, creates separateness. But as a child, I didn't know that, and I rejected it. Like I tuned out of everything. I went to Sunday school, and I couldn't tell you one Bible story because I tuned it all out.
I don't think you're not the only one. Is there something about you that you really like about yourself, or that you have found in your journey that you wish others would recognize more
about me?
Yeah.
So many things. Are you familiar with human design? Is that one test that you've done?
Is it called human design? I have not taken that test. No. Now
it's
I'm
not
intrigued.
A test. It's actually like a birth chart. If you have your birth info, you would pull.
I do know I've done my birth chart. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's similarly, it combines astrology, the chakra system, I Ching, and Kabbalah.
Okay.
And it spits out a chart, and it's a passion project of mine. I like to read charts, but one of the things that is in my chart is I have this channel of judgment, it's called.
Okay.
And what it allows me to do actually is I can walk into chaos and I can tell you where all the issues are. And so sometimes I think it's perceived as it's called a projected channel, so it has to be invited in, or people won't receive it. And so this is something I've done my whole life. I mean, I can open a menu and find a typo. Like it's just something, it's just innate within me. And I think that so my inclination is to find what's wrong first before I find what's right.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily like we live in a world, right, that's conditioned to positive reinforcement and all of that. And I just like cut to the chase and like, here's what I see is wrong.
Right.
And so I always tell people that they have to be ready for my work because like my work cuts through all the shit and like we face your demons.
Wow.
Like that's what I do. And so it's translated right into, you know, process improvement, from process improvement in corporate and redesigning systems and all the things to like finding energetically what's at the root of your noise and how can we clear that.
That's right. And in our world, we call it let's find the friction.
Yeah.
Like what's causing the rub in your organization that's stopping your growth. And I would liken to what you're doing is what's the friction inside somebody that's stopping their growth.
100%.
Okay. Well, is there a piece of advice that you have gotten from other founders or entrepreneurs that you really took to heart that, or is there a piece of advice you'd like to share with our audience to go, look, this is take this to heart?
I mean, the biggest thing that honestly comes through, and I don't know if anyone has said this to me, but I mean, be you is what comes through. I don't think that the world needs more robots and people imitating each other, right? We imitate out of fear. You know, we don't need more of that. We need more truth expression and courage. And I think that it takes that. It takes that to express yourself, but it's magical and it's exactly what you're meant here to do. And nobody, even people in the same industry, nobody can imitate your energy, right? Nobody can magnetize like you can. That's the biggest thing I would say.
Yeah. Be unapologetically you.
Yes.
Right? Yes. I love it. Well, before we go, where can people find you, learn more about what your practice does? It's KQ Unplugged. So how do you want people to connect with you?
Yeah, my website is kqunplugged.co. And then I do hang out on Instagram stories a bit. My Instagram is rewildingkq. So
very good. We make sure we'll tag all that. But this has been a great conversation. I hope this was fun for you too, Kristin.
It was. Thank you so much.
It was nice to get to know you. I always get amazed at how fast these things go. For everyone listening or watching, thank you for joining us. This podcast episode will be published on Sundays. So subscribe to Hello Chaos. Give us a like, a comment, a share, or a nice review, and help us build a more connected entrepreneurial community. Hello Chaos is one of the many resources brought to you by Orange Whip. That is Orange Whip, WIP for Work in Progress. We're a multimedia company dedicated to serving founders and entrepreneurs in affiliate markets. Just an email to join the community, and it's a pretty fun content hub for founders. We're in 3 markets today, looking to expand to a market near you. If you'd like to be a guest on our podcast, please support us. If you'd like to support us, send us an email to hello@orangewhip.com. Thank you for tuning in to Hello Chaos. We will see you again next week.